Thank you, Renee. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And could you give us a bit of an introduction as to who you are and what you do and how you came to be doing this?
Yeah, so my name's Renee, and the space that we're in is called the Armarie room. First name Renee, middle name Marie. Armarie.
Nice.
I've been working creatively since I was little, and worked in all sorts of kinds of visual arts, and fell in love with printmaking when I was at school. And so this is a printmaking and letterpress studio, and it's a combination of my own art practice alongside commercial modern letterpress work. And
you did printmaking at school?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty forward thinking, eh?
Yeah, I was lucky to go to a school with an art teacher who was passionate about printmaking and very experimental too. So I think so it was, by the time I'd left school, I'd worked in most printmaking mediums. It was quite second nature to me.
And how did you find yourself running this business here?
In some ways it was accidental, but what happened is I did have a little printmaking studio where I used to live in Wanaka, and I'd started doing a little bit of commission work, including businesses that wanted to emboss their logo or do something a little bit special. So I was using traditional printmaking to do that with an etching press, and that's what started me thinking, well, how are they doing this commercially? How do you emboss hundreds or thousands of cartons or business cards? Like, they mustn't be running it through an etching press. And that's when I learnt about letterpress. And when I moved to Nelson, somebody said to me, you should go and see if there's any studio space available at Founders Park. Didn't know what that was, and when I arrived they offered me this space, which of course had all the machinery you needed to run a letterpress studio. So it was definitely serendipity, because here it all was, and I just had to take the plunge and do it. And
was it at school that you first sort of fell in love with printmaking?
Yeah, it was. I did painting and printmaking at school, I did printmaking from the time I was at intermediate right through, and I did it as part of my bursary exams. So I think probably why I fell in love with printmaking was when I had the chance to do acid etching, etching zinc plates. So we're quite lucky to be able to do that at school, and it's just such a cool process.
Wow. And letterpress is such a sort of like beautiful, tactile, both the product and process. What is it? Does it continue to draw you in?
Yeah, I think I've always loved layering and the textures that you can create with printmaking. In the same way as other art forms like painting, you can layer upon layer, and you can just do that so easily with printmaking. I love tactile surfaces. I've always been interested in embossing and surface texture before I even discovered letterpress. So my main interest is what kind of surfaces can I create with this medium.
Wonderful. And what do you think is important about sort of keeping this craft alive in an sort of an increasingly digital world?
It's a big question. So I think initially my motivations, like I said, I was just really interested in what you could do with this machinery and this process as an creatively. But over the course of learning it, I've realised just how rare and valuable the skills are, and that you can only learn this by physically doing it. Like, you can listen to podcasts, you can watch videos, you can do all the things that the digital world gives you, but you can only do this and grow with it by doing it. There's no other way around it. You have to get your hands dirty, so to speak.
And I suppose it's like the same as like basket weaving. There's no mechanical process for doing basket weaving. You can't automate it from a machine.
No, you can't mimic it in any way really. And yeah, like basket weaving's a good example. Like you really need someone there who can show you and work with you and help you grow in those skills. So, the skills are definitely passed from person to person. I think it would be extremely difficult to learn something like this in an isolated environment when you had no teacher or mentor kind of guiding you.
Yeah, and you can't offload it to a computer to do, like the machines can't just do it like automatically.
No.
Your prints are really quite sort of visually striking, and it looks like there's a real mix between sort of the precision of those pieces of work and playfulness. And how do you sort of balance that?
So I think I've always been interested in how can I use print as a medium and push it beyond its kind of, we often think of a print as a rectangular object on a piece of paper that's often framed. And so for a long time in my practice I was interested in, well, how can it become an object? How can it doesn't have to be rectangular, it could be cut out, all these sorts of things. So I've always been interested in pushing the boundaries a little bit, but at the same time, I'm a precision person, and I get a lot of satisfaction figuring out how to really do something really mint. And as a teacher, that's kind of how I tend to teach. It's like, I like to show people how to do it right, and then you get to break the rules and be really experimental. And so I think that is a really great balance to have no matter what you're doing. Like, how do you get it right, but then how do you just break the rules and be experimental?
Because you've got to know the rules before you break them, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And how much of your work is sort of planned and measured? Or do you just go in the flow sometimes?
It depends what I'm doing. So if I'm creating from scratch, so I have to think about if it was for a client work, and I'm creating from scratch, it's similar to how you think about an artwork, where you have a little bit of an idea and you start playing around with imagery, playing around with ideas, and just slowly kind of tweaking that work until it's right. Some work that comes in has been designed by other people, and so you're really just working with that designer, and so there might be just a little bit of, it's a little bit different designing for letterpress. So sometimes that's just more collaborating with people, making sure they're clear on the process so they can design the best thing that they can. Yeah. Wow. So sort of two arms to what I do. Yeah. One is where I get to put my own creativity, and then the other is where I'm actually bringing somebody else's vision to life, and that's pretty cool. Yeah. You enjoy that? I love that. Cool. Yeah. And there's a real sort of tactile beauty in printmaking. Yeah. It's not seen in a lot of other art forms. Yeah. Because it feels very sort of analogue. And do you have a theory as to like the beauty in the analogue, or? I think so. I mean, I love working with my hands. I always have to be doing something, making something, and I think that it just gives you the opportunity to slow down a bit and really focus on the creating and the making, and bringing something to life that's physical is a really cool thing. And I think it doesn't matter whether I'm doing that for somebody else or for my own work. There's that real pleasure of bringing that design into something physical and making it with your hands. And is there anything that you think that the general public doesn't really understand or know about the
process and the physicality of what you're doing that you think?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know, even for me, I didn't know as a huge amount about letterpress when I first got into it, and I think probably people have no idea how much goes into it, because I'm working with physical plates, I'm mixing the ink, so if you say to me I want this specific colour of ink and it's CMYK, I am looking up the formula for that, and I'm literally adding a little bit of this colour, a little bit of that colour, mixing it together. Everything about it is got a hand-eye component to it. And even when I'm printing, some of these machines, they're obviously mechanical machines where they are picking up the paper and running it through the press, so they're working quite quickly, but I still have to stop the machine. I have to check, is the ink still the right colour, or do I need to add a little bit more ink because it's starting to lose the depth of colour along the way. So it's definitely not like pressing a button, asking it to do 100 copies, walking away and coming back 5 minutes later.
And on that sort of, do the different machines have their own different characters, like in working with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Heidelberg is really great for larger runs. It does move quite quickly. It's an amazing machine. It's precision alignment, and that's the other thing too, is each colour is a different plate, and so each time you run a colour through the press, you are aligning it by eye yourself. Wow. So I know that the machine's going to pick the paper up and put it in the same place, but I still have to align the plate so it hits in the same place. Whereas the machine at the back, which is a flatbed printer, you can be quite creative with that, and you can use different ink colours on the rollers, make ombres and rainbow rolls, and it's a slower machine because it's hand cranked one at a time, but it's great for artworks and things where you don't have to do such big runs, but you want to be quite creative with what you're doing.
That's amazing. And in a time like where we're all quite digitally overloaded, do you think that there's a tactile beauty in traditional craftsmanship that can help us as humans reconnect to both art and each other? Or?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think the thing that teaches me the most is the workshops that I run, because every time it is that, for the students, it is that joy of hands-on creating and meeting other people, and it's there's a lot of good vibes in the room as people support each other in their creative process and print, and everyone gets a lot of pleasure out of seeing what everybody else produces. So even though sometimes I'm working in here alone, those workshops are really good for me to remind myself that it's a great thing to be able to make and produce something physical. I'm still using digital, I'm still designing on the computer, so there's that space where I am looking at on a screen, but being able to bring it to life in its physical form. I think if I didn't have that, I don't think I'd do the first part. Like, that's the reward. The reward is that you get to make it. Yeah.
I mean, I remember designing stuff and then sending it off somewhere to get printed, and eventually it comes back, and you're like, you feel divorced from that process. You do a bit. Whereas you get to own the whole process. Which is fantastic.
And when I'm making for somebody else, it's really pretty nice to see the smile on their face when you get to give them the product, and they're just like, wow, it's better than I thought it would be.
Nice. And so printmaking can be quite sort of slow and repetitive, I suppose. Do you find it quite meditative? Do you get in the flow and?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's what I do love about printmaking, is the different stages. I love to draw. So as a printmaker and artist, I love that process of starting with a drawing and then thinking about how it would translate onto a plate. I love making plates. I love the process of it. I and really do love woodcuts. Has become the thing that I love the most, and it is because of that meditative process, the carving that goes into it, and slowly seeing that plate transform, and it does become an object, the plates. And then once you've got that part of it, then there's this whole other world where you can mix different colours, you can change that artwork so much with the plate that you've got. So yeah, I think it's that combination of creativity and process, and it's meditative, and it's little steps along the way. I like that.
Yeah,
it
me
works
too.
with my brain.
Yeah. And with sort of woodcut especially, there's quite often imperfections that come in, and there's a balance between acceptable imperfections and character. And like, I'm not quite sure that's right. How do you walk that balance?
Well, it's definitely easy with your own work. So with your own work, you've got that creative license. So the imperfections become part of the artwork, and usually in a good way. And I guess that's the other cool thing about printmaking is there's always surprises. It doesn't really matter how long you've been printing for. You don't really know how it's going to turn out until you actually lift the paper up, and that's quite a cool thing. And printmaking is a good lesson in that your mistakes can be the best thing you ever did. So definitely creatively, printmaking's great for that, because you can be quite experimental, and it doesn't have to be the perfect print. It can be have a lot of humanness to it. It's different when I am editioning work for other people. I guess that's where the consistency and having some of those technical skills we talked about earlier, where you do want to know how to get it right for those kinds of jobs, but the creative art side of it is where you can just really have that artistic license and break the rules and be quite experimental and embrace the imperfections.
And you say editioning work for other people, for those who don't know what that means.
So that's where an artist or designer may have a plate that they want to run, have a series of work, or have a collection of works that they usually will be selling or passing on somehow. So they might want 20 or 50 works editioned, which means you're making 20 to 50 prints of their artwork, and they will either provide you with the plate, or it might be more collaborative where you work together and make the plate in the studio, and then you go on to print it for them.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And in your view, what's lost when we prioritise efficiency over craft?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So if I answer that question from the business side of running a letterpress studio, so that's a tricky one where there's parts of if you think from meeting the client through to finishing the work, there's parts of that where you do want it to run efficiently. So, you want to get your quotes out and all that sort of side of it to be kind of a seamless process, both for you and the client. Make it as painless as possible. But this letterpress printing or printmaking is always going to be a slow craft. It's just, you can't speed it up really. And so the benefits of that, I think, is that it possibly does force everyone to slow down a little bit, because right from the get-go, because you are making a physical plate, and that physical plate can be used hundreds and hundreds of times, you want to get that plate right. You don't want any mistakes in it. So right from the start, where if I'm working with a client, it is actually almost forcing them to slow down and really check all of their work. Is everything bang on? Because you can't just do you can do a reprint, but it's very expensive. Yeah. So I think there's a benefit to that, right? Because it forces you to instead of just sending stuff off in a hurry, you're really looking at the work and making sure that everything's just how you want it. Yeah, I think that's
cool.
all right.
I know from my experience, we did several thousand brochures.
Yeah.
And we got them printed, and they came back, and there was errors all through them because the client hadn't sat down and done a proper check of the facts.
Yeah.
That was an expensive mistake.
Yeah.
We don't want that too often.
Yeah. Okay. I think probably maybe when clients are, there's probably a lot more mistakes that way. You are tending to kind of rush through briefs and rush through projects, where I think with this I do encourage a little bit of like, okay, let's just make sure we get it right before we go into production.
Definitely. And on a sort of like slightly more political lens, this sort of holding on to a very well established craft that's very deliberate can be seen as a bit of or can be interpreted as a bit of a form of activism against the kind of the throwaway, quick, disposable culture that we find ourselves in. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I obviously came into this because I loved the beauty of it and the craftsmanship of it. But what I've learned along the way is that really the things that I'm making, whether it's for myself or for other people, they are keepsakes. And even if you're talking about business cards, like people invest in business cards with me because those cards don't get thrown away. So everything's like a little wee piece of art that people hold on to. And that's definitely a powerful thing and a relevant thing.
Totally.
Right now, yeah.
What sort of words of advice would you give to any people who are looking to get into more traditional printmaking as a craft or even a profession?
Well, I think it's like any craft or anything, any art form, is that obviously it takes time and practice, but like each work informs the next work. Is my big takeaway is that it's like it's like just a little stepping stone. So you just move from one work to the next work, and each work may have its own focus. So again, I just draw on my students who come to my workshop. So the introductory course that I run for woodcuts and lino cuts, that first stepping stone is actually just picking up your tools, learning how to use your tools, what kinds of marks can you make. And you may not feel like the image is the ultimate thing that you wanted to make, but the thing that you've learned is how to use your tools. And there might be something in that image where you're like, oh, I'm really happy with how that turned out. So the next work, like, right, I really liked what was going on there, I'm going to put that into this work. And then that work has developed a little bit more, and you're like, oh, I'm really happy with how this is looking. And so the next work, and it just grows from there. And I think that's the same with the techniques as well. So it can be quite tricky at first, figuring out how much ink to put on the plate. There's normally too much or too little. And again, it's just like looking at that work, what's going on here, okay, looks like I did that, right, let's try that differently in this work. So you just got to be open to kind of critiquing your own work and learning from it, and then going on to the next thing.
Yeah, totally. I think that's how people find their own voice as well, is through that sort of evolution of what inspires you through your own piece. And in my opinion, the way to find your own voice is to continue to turn up and do work. Because that's how you're making an idea of what you love. Is there any misconceptions that you think that people coming into this, you wish they'd know, or you'd like to correct? Correct's probably a bit of a strong word.
So in terms of printmaking, I think that printmaking's different, because I feel like it's more of it's definitely more in the creative art side, and so you know, most people they seem to really enjoy exploring that world. Letterpress, so from the kind of the commercial business side and using letterpress, I mean, even I was just so naive about actually what it would take with that printmaking background. You know, I had a lot of knowledge there coming into letterpress, and I was very, very lucky to have retired printers who put their hand up to train me. Yeah. But never did I imagine that the work required and the time that it would take just to kind of move from where I was to feeling like I might be actually mastering this thing. It was huge. It was a huge learning curve, bigger than I ever thought. Yeah. And I think I was just really lucky that it was at a point in my life where I was a bit naive and full of energy, and I was just so gung-ho about learning it that I just was like, I'm going to learn this thing no matter what. But yeah, it was definitely a lot more to it than I ever imagined. Those guys who trained to be letterpress printers and print in the way that I print today, they trained for 7 years. It's a 7-year apprenticeship. That's a long time to be mastering a craft, and it's a huge bank of knowledge, really huge. Yeah.
And where do you find the presses and the typefaces and such? Like how do they come into
my world? Yeah. So I was lucky with the space because a lot of this machinery is part of the Founders Park collection. But since it's kind of, as it's matured as a studio, I've had a really close relationship with the Ferrymead Print Society down in Christchurch. So when my first Heidelberg gave up the ghost, they found me another one. So once I sort of got to know people, and there are people who are very, very passionate about this art form, as in any art form, you know, there's those collectors of people, and so machinery-wise, they've been able to help me out quite a bit, and then as typefaces, they do emerge from time to time, and so I've just been able to slowly build the collection up.
And what sort of mindsets or sort of skill set would somebody need to master in order to sort of start pursuing a career in this field?
I think for me it was definitely a combination of what can I create with this stuff, and I could just see that it's endless. So I think it's partly that, being able to think, wow, I've got this tools, equipment, machinery, there's so much that can be done with it. But I think too, the other side of my brain is that it's quite practical. It's I like solving problems actually. Printmaking is often like a little bit of detective work. So I like that side of it. I have ended up really enjoying restoring the machinery, understanding how the machinery works. Yeah, so all those sort of, not sure, is that the left side of the brain, isn't it?
Yeah, I never remember.
I never remember either.
Doesn't matter. That's probably because
pretty sure I use both. But
And are there any sort of artists and printmakers and stuff, mentors that have inspired you along your journey?
Yeah, so I was definitely, the big one for me was the street art movement when printmakers started to stick up work. So I loved that. I was really inspired by Swoon, but is probably the most well-known artist for that, but there was a huge amount of them. And I remember seeing a work, I can't remember the artist, doesn't come to mind at the moment, but I remember seeing a work where the woodcut was a woodcut, and it was pasted into a corner of an alleyway, and just the kind of the cool distortion that happened to the work. It just looked amazing. And for me, I was like, that was that thing where I was trying to make my prints like objects, and that was the click moment. I was like, oh yeah, you can take these objects and install them into spaces, and they become a different thing. Yeah, different space to the fine art gallery space.
Yeah.
So that was a massive shift for me. It changed the way I worked and the way I thought about my work quite a bit.
Totally, and it sort of helped revolutionise communication of ideas and things as well, printmaking, I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like, historically, printmaking, it's kind of an activist art form, even hundreds and hundreds of years back. A lot of artists use print as a way to make comments on society, and they literally would paste their prints up around the town and around the street, and we're still really doing that today. Yeah, and I guess that's one advantage that print has over other things, is that you can produce lots and lots of them if you want to.
Totally. And what's exciting you at the moment about what's coming up that's exciting you?
So I am actually just working on something for a client where I've done a lot of paper cutouts in my own practice, and so I'm collaborating with another printer who's got a machine that can cut out quite intricate things. And so that's really exciting for me, because it's like I can work on layering. But I think for me, the biggest thing is that the studio is ticking over. It's really rewarding to have work coming in all the time, and what that means is that I can then focus on some of my own work and creativity. So that's a big one, and that's always the juggle. Like, how do you juggle the everyday need for income to come in, and also be able to take the time to work on your own pieces and keep developing. So yeah, that's a big one for me, is that there's more space to be able to do that.
Yeah, totally. I like, when I was working in design, I would always do one for them, one for me.
Yeah.
So something that I really loved, and something that puts food on the table, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And how do people find out about the courses that you run, and buying your own work and commissioning you to do pieces?
So they would go to the website, the armarieroom.com, ARMARIE. That's my main platform. I'm also on Instagram under the same name, and Facebook. But yeah, go to the website, because the website, that's mine.
And can people come and pop in? And
of course. And the studio's open Tuesday to Friday, 10:30 to 4:30.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add or talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been really fun. Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's awesome.
Thanks for coming.